Photurus carolinus, otherwise known as firefly. I remember as a young boy chasing these beetles all throughout the woods in New England, causing all sorts of havoc. Maybe some neighbors called the police, etc. But I was always mystified by these tiny little creatures being able to emit such a powerful, strong signal from their little bodies. In fact, this particular species, once a year, for a 2-week period in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, does something amazing. See, one single influencer among all of these beetles emits a signal. Flash, flash. Shortly thereafter, another fly goes flash, flash. 2, 4, 20, 100, 1,000. Within minutes, there is an illustrious symphony of flashes. This synchronization of flashes shows a display unmatched with many other animals here on the planet. See, this type of coordination continues to baffle scientists, but we do know that it started with a signal that was picked up by others and emulated. The European starling, first introduced into the United States in the late 1800s by, believe it or not, Shakespeare enthusiasts. In fact, they released several of them in Central Park because they were so fascinated the number of times Shakespeare referenced these birds. Over 200 years later, they grew to a population exceeding 200 million. One thing that's really neat about these birds, though, is the way they signal each other. One bird, according to many scientists, communicates to its left or to its right to 7 other birds, who then communicate to their left and to their right. And the result, much like the fireflies, is a coordinated orchestra of flocks that pan and turn without any sort of other stimulus. You see, these birds have an ability, as they continue to communicate, to do 90 and 180 degree turns on a dime without any sort of ability to be duplicated. However, the animals' kingdom is not the only place where we see the ability to signal masses and the result become unprecedented. Meet Asma Mahfouz. See, Asma in 2011 was just like you and I, a normal, everyday, hardworking person. In fact, her country was experiencing a revolution. It was January 18th, 2011, and 4 Egyptians had set themselves on fire outside of Tahrir Square, protesting the Mubarak regime. Unchallenged and undaunted, and in many ways unprecedented, Asma sent a signal. She posted a YouTube video on the 24th of January that said, "Join me tomorrow on the 25th of January to stand for the rights that we deserve as human beings." What she didn't plan for was hundreds of thousands of people descending on Tahrir Square. This unprecedented action-reaction was something that was unable to be predicted. So when you look at beetles, and you look at birds, and you look at people, we all seem to respond to the signal of one person, or thing, or animal, or insect. but we can never really understand how far our signal may go. So I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand this. I built a software that allowed me to look at things a little bit differently. So this is Matt. Matt is an amateur blogger for the New York Mets. Being from Boston, I'm not offended. If he was a Yankees fan, we might have some words. So Matt one day came across a piece of content that influenced him. The piece of content was a video built by the Rockin' 1000 group out of Cesena, Italy. This particular video was made for 5 people: Dave Grohl and the members of the Foo Fighters band. The video was a call to action for the band to come play in Italy, and Matt liked it. He liked it so much, he wanted to share it in his group. So Matt, represented by the dot, shared it with his amazingly large network of 567 people. What Matt didn't realize, though, is when you start a message and when you catalyze a movement and when you emit a signal, it takes on a life of its own. In Matt's case, it was shared to his friends and friends and friends and friends. Friends he didn't even know. At the end, he had reached 2.9 million people from his 567. The result was a network that exceeded most modern understanding of social networking. In fact, this video resulted in an unprecedented 40 million people in receipt. Matt started a waterfall from his one message. This is Sarah. Sarah's a leadership coach, and one day came across a message about this man, Richard Overton. Now, Richard is the oldest living World War II veteran in the United States. His medical expenses had exceeded the faculties of the Veterans Administration, and he needed money to stay in his house and receive 24/7 care. Sarah was so moved by this, like Matt, she took a chance. She had hope that somebody might agree with her message or be moved in the way that she was moved to actually do something about it. She posted it on her favorite social network, where she had roughly 6,000 people that cared about her content. By no means was Sarah a celebrity. Like Matt, however, Sarah's network took the content and spread it to their friends, ultimately reaching over 400,000 people. What did this really mean? I mean, the fact that Sarah took a chance to share content with her network, the fact that Sarah endorsed the content, had hope that somebody out there that she likely doesn't know would be moved like she was. The content ended up reaching over 6.5 million people. Within 30 days, over $160,000 had been raised. See, Sarah's signal started a movement. There's roughly 7 billion people here today on this planet. According to many stats, 3.5 billion of them have internet connectivity. So what does that mean? It means in many cases, we should be able to reach through one other person the entire world when we signal a message. We should be able to incite the force and the collective knowledge of the crowd that's connected. This is my dad. My dad didn't have a network like Sarah or like Matt. In fact, in 2008, when he was diagnosed with leukemia, networks were just developing. The ability for a single person to touch a nation, in many cases, was fantasy. My dad died in 2012. And had I known then what I know now, I would have approached his problem entirely differently. See, he needed a bone marrow match. And at that time, the hope and the belief of many, including myself, was that our signal to get a new bone marrow match had a limited reach. There's only a certain number of people with the genetic attributes needed, and that is true. But what if we had a network like the Foo Fighter video? What if we could leverage 40 million people to get the message out and say, are you a match? Do you contain this? See, the paradigm today should be one that defaults to hope. The paradigm should be anything is possible. The paradigm should be you don't need to be a celebrity to influence. You don't need to have 10 million followers to induce a revolution. You don't need to be on TV to change a nation. Photius Carolinus, otherwise known as you and you and you and you and you, who, by the beginning of a simple signal, can start a movement. This movement can impact a city. This movement can impact your town. This movement can impact the world. It starts with you. It starts with believing that anything is possible when you show your light. Thank you.